the bottom line is that weaponizing of the dollar has consequences. And I think those consequences are something that we will see come to bear as more and more and more countries find alternatives to this system.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for February 5th through February 12th, 2024, while supplies last. This week we have silver Valcambi or Asahi 100-ounce bars at just $1.39 over spot per ounce. We also feature pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $89 over melt and $139 over melt, respectively. Next, backdated 1-ounce silver maples are at $3.75 over spot with a minimum order of 50. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always glad to have this returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us for this weekly market update. Today is Friday, February 9th, 2024. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Good to see you, my man. Happy it's Friday. Good to be back. Thanks for juggling your schedule for me. I appreciate it, and hope everyone's doing well.
Yep, and so that everyone out there knows, we usually do this on Tuesday nights, so you're not wrong. It's Friday now, but usually we do this Tuesday. We'll be back on a regular schedule next week, Tuesday. Andy, I wanted to talk with you about something that was rather remarkable that was published yesterday by the Tucker Carlson Network, TCN. For those of you who aren't aware of this, Tucker Carlson, formerly one of the most popular news anchors at Fox News, was invited to leave Fox News rather abruptly and suddenly after talking about some surprisingly controversial topics that I guess were untouchable. And he, rather than going away quietly, formed his own network. And now actually just in the last week here interviewed the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and that was just published yesterday. We are going to include a link to that interview in the description of this video because it was remarkable in that after about a 45-minute history lesson going back to the 800s about the formation of Russia and boundaries and all that sort of thing, why Russia feels it has valid claims to Ukraine, etc., Vladimir Putin got into talking about the relationship with the United States and his series of difficulties in trying to build bridges of cooperation with American leaders over the many presidencies that he's been president. And here he was talking about, especially folks, if you start listening at the 1 hour, 18-minute mark, he's basically sounding the alarm on exactly what, Andy, you've been talking about to us for years now, and that is the, I guess you could call it the controlled demolition of the U.S. dollar, both as the world reserve currency, but as an influential currency in general and the bulwark of the Western financial edifice. So Putin's remarks sounded eerily like yours. He was saying, and it reminded me of something that Bill Holter said, it's too stupid to be stupid. He didn't say it in those terms. He put it much more diplomatically, but he just said, and you can maybe reiterate your take on what he said, but it was not only sounding the alarm on why this has been going on, that it's significant, and that why would the U.S. be doing this, and do its people even understand what's happening to their own currency? Yeah,
I thought, I don't know. It's a real experience, Dunnigan, for me, because, I've been doing this for a very, very long time, 34 years, but it's just been a few years that I've put myself out there in front of the public. And, it's one thing to say what you feel at a conference of a few hundred attendees. It's another thing to do this daily on YouTube. And I really started this narrative with you a long time ago. And you do not need to be particularly astute to see the crumbs that are laid at our feet. You just need to open your eyes. And I think that's really the thing here, is that I spent so much time looking at all of the crumbs, just trying to fashion them back together in the form of a cookie. You can see it if you look. And again, what Putin was saying, we've talked about now at length for well over a year, about how using the dollar as a political tool, if you will, is a huge mistake. No one in the Southern Hemisphere will ever trust us again when we go as far as sanctioning and take it even further and confiscate the Russian forex reserves, $380 billion to again fight the war in the Ukraine. And I think that this is a big mistake, and Putin says it too. And I found it actually very eerie when he said, does anyone in the United States know what the dollar is and what will happen more or less if you lose it as the reserve status? Because, what you talk about, he says, look, the sanctions that the United States puts on countries, they don't work. Look, they put this sanction on Russia, and we were the number one, he says, economy in Europe last year. So do they really work? And in fact, all they are doing is uniting a group of countries where, another 35 countries have formally applied to the BRICS. And this is something that I think is becoming glaringly obvious. And the interesting thing is that when I listen to Putin talk, it's very logical about what he was saying. And why do people not know this? Why do people in the United States not see this? And that's the same question I have. How do people not see this? How do people not understand what we are doing will have severe ramifications? Let's just look at, for example, what happened in Iraq the other day. We target supposedly an Iranian-backed senior Hezbollah official in a suburban area in Iraq, and have a drone strike and blow it up in a densely populated suburban area. Now, no one else was killed, fortunately, but the point of it is that the way that we are going about things with coercion and bombing and sanctioning and bullying, right, wrong, or indifferent. Imagine if this was in the United States and, that we were, we had a country occupying our country. And 20 years after the war took place, they're still having drone strikes in suburban areas targeting a leader from another country. The point of it is that these types of actions, I don't care how much of a patriot you are. I'm a huge patriot. I love this country and everything that it offers. But our leaders are making terrible mistakes that are uniting the majority of the world. And when I say the majority of the world, I mean, I'm serious. It is the majority of the world. The BRICS have already surpassed the G7 in terms of GDP, in terms of energy production, in terms of oil production, and in terms of just about everything, in terms of wealth, with the new countries that have been admitted. They already have over 45 trillion in combined wealth. So they are a wealthier country that produces more, that has access to all of the world's energy and commodities. And this is just a growing trend. And these mistakes that we are making is something that we've been talking about at length. And it was interesting to hear Putin validate it all, not all of it, but a lot of it. And simply the bottom line is that weaponizing of the dollar has consequences. And I think those consequences are something that we will see come to bear as more and more and more countries find alternatives to this system of coercion rather than what the BRICS are doing of mutual cooperation. And that's the big difference. None of the BRICS countries have any obligation to one another. They are all together through cooperation and of their own will. They are not being forced into anything. And that's the big distinction here, is these countries are doing it for their own betterment through mutual cooperation. And that's the key here. That's the rallying cry that makes it work. And it was interesting to listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, I'd like to take two approaches on that. One is the international and one is the domestic. The international approach is, as you're saying, it's as though the rest of the world sees glaringly obviously what we are being not told about. What with those within the U.S. who are plugged into mainstream financial press, mainstream media, mainstream financial advisors, etc., are being told one thing, and what we're not being told is obvious to the rest of the world. And the consequences of that could be severe. In the story of the emperor had no clothes, it's like people were people all doubted themselves. They doubted their gut until one person was willing to shout out, a little kid, and say, "Hey, the emperor has no clothes on." And suddenly, the power, this psychological trance that everybody was under, and the intimidation that they were concerned to speak up, suddenly vanished in the blink of an eye. It changed everything. As soon as everybody knew that everybody knew, it's all over. And what the important thing there is not only their own personal liberation, but what they could have been doing, what they should have been doing, what they should have been saying for years before that, but they were inhibiting themselves out of fear or out of self-consciousness or whatever, social pressure, groupthink, whatever. But it also implies the emperor's power suddenly went from almighty to nothing, because it was shown to be just a sham. And so it can affect both ways. And the same thing with the playground bully. When finally somebody stands up to the playground bully, and Putin, interestingly, has been portrayed by those who've been feeding us our news for decades as the bully and the evil one and all this sort of thing. And yet, when he starts describing meeting after meeting after meeting that he had with whether Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, with Condoleezza Rice and others, and started to open up bridges, say, hey, can we join NATO? Can we do these different things? How can we cooperate here? Can we make a joint security system so that we all have the same information as far as preventing attacks, globally, because global security is in all of our best interest, that sort of thing. That the frontline leaders who met with him often seemed, maybe that can work. I'll take that back to the back office, and we'll talk to our heads of staff and that sort of thing. And universally came back saying, no, can't be done. We're not interested. We're going to stay with our course of actions. So this idea that there's been two realms, two worlds, the one that's public facing, that looks like, okay, maybe telling him maybe we can talk, and then some back office that says, no, we can't. And it reminds me when Elijah and I attended the Ron Paul Institute's Peace and Prosperity Conference in Washington, D.C., and we heard Thomas Massey and Ron Paul and others talking about the deep state and how what they call the neocons basically entrenched parties in the government in Washington that have been there unelected for decades, and always keeping us at the brink of war, always keeping the population afraid of enemies around the world. Why we have to justify 400 to 800 military bases and trillions of dollars spent on military and sending our sons and daughters. Is this really in the interest of the United States, of our people, or are they doing the bidding of someone else, or are they just trying to keep themselves in the gravy train? The military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about at his farewell address. But that was a big deal that came through to me from Putin's speech. In addition to everything monetary that you're talking about, is this dichotomy of two realities, the one that the American people are being told about. And that's, I think, very interesting to our viewers, because we've been here since 2013 saying, folks, this is what you're not being told about. This is what you need to get ready for. You need to get prepared, because things are going to be changing. Things are not going to be the same going forward. The realm is going to be changing, and you need to be in the right place ahead of time, because it'll be too late when it's too late. And yet we felt like fish out of water. We felt like we were the only ones thinking that way or seeing that way. Maybe we were wrong. People doubt ourselves because it's exactly counter to what we're being told by mainstream sources, including government sources of all of our financial statistics and employment and GDP and all that. I just interviewed Michael Pinto. He talked to us about that, about how the wool is being pulled over our eyes constantly about the reality of what we're dealing with. So when we feel like we're behind enemy lines in our own country, in our own beloved country, feeling like that our leaders, so-called leaders, do not have the best interests of our people at heart, here you have now suddenly seen from the perspective of outside. It's like in the Wizard of Oz, when do not pay attention to the man behind the curtain. You're seeing from outside the curtain what it looks like. And ironically, as Daniel McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute talked about, he said people would be shocked if they learned that the media in our country is more controlled than the media was in Soviet-style Russia. So anyway, that's the other thing that came to me internally about our country, is how we seem to be within this echo chamber, and the rest of the world sees what we're not being allowed to see.
Yeah, and I watched that video last night with you and Michael Pinto, and he's always one of my favorites, and a smart guy. And look, we've been saying this forever, that the inflation numbers are a lie, and that the employment numbers are a lie. Michael talked about the seasonal adjustments, the January numbers, which are are BS. When you look at the actual number of layoffs, the tremendous amount of big corporate layoffs, and the huge number of full-time jobs that are being shed in place of part-time seasonal jobs. And we talk about the fact that the BIS came back at the end of, or at the beginning here of 2024 and said, by the way, the jobs that we said we created last year, and we were so proud of the administration's ability to get, job creation going. Well, we were off by 40% or 440,000 jobs. You hear all these people talking on the left media saying, well, he's done such a wonderful job on employment. Well, the numbers are a lie, and the BIS is there to take the eye out of BIS, and that's what you get. And it's true. I mean, it really is true that, the media keeps touting this wonderful job that they've done on inflation and on employment, and they're all a lie. And when you talk about inflation, inflation, what we have seen as prices have come down is disinflation, not deflation. We've seen some prices come down, but I mean, high prices have not gone anywhere. In fact, if you look at the M2 money supply, which is really the definition of an inflation is an increase in the money supply, it's gone up 59 straight years in a row, 59 in a row, with the exception of a little bit of a decrease the last 2 years. But here it is again in the election year, and it's ticked up again. The money supply is increasing right now, as a matter of fact. And so inflation really is not going anywhere. And ask yourself, how the hell do we pay for, 34 trillion in debt and 150 trillion in unfunded liabilities? Or how about the fact that, how are we going to pay for the 2-year treasuries that are coming due, $5, $6, $7 trillion worth of 2-year treasuries that are rolling over this year, to the point we have to come up with almost $10 trillion this year, or sell $10 trillion in debt just to cover the $1.4 trillion deficit and the $8.9 trillion in government debt that matures over the next year. And I mean, who's going to buy all of that? And so when you talk about inflation, when you talk about money creation, when you talk about employment, we're being lied to. We're being lied on so many things. It's very disheartening to me. And in watching the way that, even the way that they've dealt with the special counsel on President Biden's mishandling of documents, this has been going on for quite some time now that they've been investigating it. And you have the guy come out and say, well, we decided not to press charges because he's a feeble old man who is very forgetful. I mean, this is the guy that is running our country, and that they want to run out as the president next year to challenge for the Democratic ticket. And I think it's just unbelievable. I can't understand why people don't see more of what you and I talk about every day, and how there are any apologists for the current regime or the current two-tier justice system, or any of these awful things that we see at the border. And now they're blaming the border on former President Trump. I mean, I scratch my head and I wonder what the hell. It's almost like we're living in bizarro world. And I think these are the things that are not lost. And I've always said these are not lost on our allies and on our foes. And if you listen to what Putin said, a lot of these things he talked about. He talked about the open border, and he talked about the problems that the U.S. has, and we should worry about our own business rather than meddling with everyone else's. And I urge everyone to listen to it, and listen to it with an open mind. In my opinion, he comes across as someone that is far more credible, unfortunately, than the person that's leading our country right now. And now, again, this is a snippet. This is an interview. But when you talk about listening to one versus the other, if you had no preconceived notions of anything, just listening to the two men, this is a man who has a marvelous grasp on history. He seems very rational. He seems very logical. And he seems not someone who's hell-bent on war, quite to the contrary. Now, again, maybe he was just... maybe he's very good at saying the right thing as a politician. But I will simply tell you that I found most of what he had to say actually fairly logical.
Yeah, a lot of what you just described is, including the comment about the prosecutor saying that they're not going to indict Biden because of he's basically mentally incompetent to stand trial, so to speak, is what would have been in the common terms, is should stop. Every journalist who's reporting that story should like take off their glasses and rub their eyes with their fists, like Jon Stewart used to do on the was it the evening show? I can't remember what his show was, and think, what are we talking about here? And this, it goes to underscore the theme that we've been trying to expose on our channel over the years, and that is to confirm people's gut feelings that they should trust their gut because they cannot trust the information that's being coming from the leadership. Same thing from John Williams at shadowstats.com, who's visited us and talked to us about the false government statistics about the economy, etc. I hope, beyond hope, that this will help to open our eyes to realizing that there's more going on than what we're being told, and open the doors for potential peaceful solutions to things that, rather than just compliance with what's been decades long since Eisenhower warned us of leadership that's bent on leading us into conflict after conflict and basically bleeding us dry.
Well, just to put a nail in this real quick, from the I bet you don't know category. I mean, let me just give you a few things that people don't know. The Homeland Security Mayorkas, the guy that has been on trial to be, what is it? Not impeached. What's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. You know what I'm saying. The guy who, this clown that's let our borders be wide open. He just issued a written guidance making it very clear that illegal presence alone is not grounds for deportation. Criminal charges, convictions, or gang membership alone are not enough for deportation. You basically have to be a convicted murderer to be deported. The Biden administration also released a statement last Thursday warning financial institutions against using a person's illegal immigration status in credit applications. And you just can't make this up. They basically said that while it's not illegal to consider a person's immigration status in the decision as whether to lend money, an over-reliance on it could run afoul to the law, it said. They're basically saying that, just because, that they are not a citizen of the United States, that's not a condition to where you have to immediately say, no, we're not going to lend them money. New Mexico is now making illegal immigrants they're making it legal for these people to obtain law licenses by waiving consideration of applicants' immigration status. This is from the state Supreme Court of New Mexico. I asked myself, where the hell are we living? What is going on? In University of California, Berkeley, undocumented students with AB 540 and SB 68 status qualify for many forms of financial aid, including exemption from non-resident tuition, which means you'll be eligible for in-state tuition and fees, along with Cal grants, UC grants, and scholarships and private scholarships. These are people who are not even citizens of this country. What about the kids who are trying to go to school here that are citizens? These things that are happening, and then you see, policemen getting beat up and a 60-year-old woman being dragged behind a scooter, and I mean, what's going on? I don't understand what is happening and why people are not opening their eyes at this late hour. And again, I'm going to say it again. We have the biggest election in the history of this country, in my opinion, in November, followed by preceded by the BRICS meeting. And 35 countries have formally applied. Do you really think that this is going to go smoothly between now and November? I think this is only just getting started. And when we see all of these things that are accelerating, now you got Janet Yellen, who came out and said that she never thought she'd see another crisis in her lifetime, just came out and said that she's very concerned about the commercial real estate problem. So you got the commercial real estate, you got the $7 trillion in 2-year treasuries that have to come out, you got the $1.8 trillion deficit, you got all of this spending, nonstop spending, to the point where on 60 Minutes, you got the head of the Federal Reserve, who's typically not someone who does anything political, saying if the U.S. government does not get their fiscal spending habits in order, it's going to, blow up this country. Well, geez, I wonder why. And I don't know. Dunnigan, look, and then to top it all off, one last thing, you got this bank that just failed in New York or is about to fail. This New York Community Bank stock that collapsed by 25, 30%. It's down 61% so far this year. 40% of its assets are not under FDIC insurance, 40%. And they have branches down here in Florida. And I have a picture from one of the guys I work with down here. He went to the bank, and the bank that it was, I don't even remember the name of it real quick. The name of the bank was, let me tell you real quick. The name was AmTrust Bank. It was a division of this New York Community Bank, and all of the banks, all of them are closed here in Florida, the AmTrust banks, and there's a sign on the door that says all branches will be closed beginning Friday, February 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern. We will reopen Tuesday, February 20th as Flagstar Bank. So there are banks that are in big trouble, and this commercial real estate problem and the end of the short-term lending program on March 11th, all of these things are converging. And the weirdest part about it all is that it's the slowest it's been in this industry in over 3 years. And it's eerie. It's eerily quiet, as if people have been just lulled into a false sense of security as the rest of the world is literally on fire. So, Dunnigan, I didn't really have much direction in any of this rambling, but
No, but I wanted to keep, because you took it right at the end here to where I wanted to go, and that was how it affects ordinary people. I mentioned the international side and the domestic side. The domestic side is ordinary moms and pops. My wife and I relocated 9 months ago to this 55-plus retirement community in Central Florida. We're surrounded by people who feel that their retirements are settled and secured. We talked to a couple of people. One said, "Why would I want to buy gold? We're already retired. We've already made it. They've passed the pearly gates, and now they're in the promised land here." But they have no idea how exposed and how vulnerable they are. It's like the rest of the world, I mean, honestly, it's like the rest of the world is mobilizing for a financial war, and we're just sitting here whistling, fiddling while Rome burns. And that's very, very concerning about ordinary people that are going to get hurt unnecessarily. That's the whole point of preparedness. Since 2013, we've been trying to help people give early warning so they can make the preparatory steps, position themselves, get what they need, get the assets they need, the training, the experience, the connections, the whatever, so that they're ready for what's coming. None of us can be entirely ready because we don't know exactly what's coming, but we know it's going to be big. It's going to be different from what the last 40 years was. And that's deeply concerning. And so when you see, oh yes, the the Dow Jones Industrial Average has gone up by more than 10%, 15% in the last 4 months. Everybody thinks, fine, made it through. Fed's got our back to good times again. We bought on dips, we're good, and just ride it out just like our financial. See, honey, the one spouse says to the other.
Well, what did Michael Pinto say on your show last night? That every single time in history that you've had markets that go up with such horrible breadth, where there's just a handful of stocks driving the entire market, that every single time it's ended poorly. And the bond market down 40% over the last few years. I mean, so you look at this 60-40 split, and you got all these people thinking, hey, everything's okay right now. We're back in the market. But he lifts up the cover, and you see the 7 or 8 stocks holding up the market. And the majority of the stocks, as he said, in the Russell 2000 or the S&P 500 are down. So this is all illusionary, whether it be the information we're being given from the BIS, whether it be the lack of information we're getting from the media, whether it be the dynamics of the stock market, which appear to be strong and healthy, yet are not, whether it be about the economy. Everything around us seems to be illusionary, and you can't make it up. And then you look at I just wonder how anyone at this point, can look at the current administration and say that they're leading us down the right path. I don't get it, and I guess we'll just keep doing what we do, Dunnigan, and even if it means some days you have to bang your head against the wall, wondering how do people not see this? And this is not about what side of the aisle you're on. I mean, like I said, my parents were hippies. I grew up as left as you could ever be in terms of social things, and I just don't get it. I am as libertarian as they come. This is not about red or blue or any of these political things. This is just simply about this country is spinning out of control. And you listen to someone like Putin, who eloquently says, do the people in the United States understand what the dollar is and what will happen if they lose that status? And he didn't quite say it that way, but I'm ad-libbing the what will happen if we lose that status. But what he was saying is, do people understand what the dollar is? And when you weaponize it and you make everyone in the world say, gee, look at what we're doing in Iraq. Iraq just came out after that bombing and said, we want all American coalition forces gone. This is another step towards it. We have lost and squandered the good graces of a lot of the countries in this world that once considered us allies. And certainly we have only reinforced those who don't, the desire to find safety and unity and cooperation in numbers. And that's something we're going to see, because there are 200 meetings between now and October, all related to the BRICS in Russia. This is going to be something that if you don't see it, I mean, the mainstream media is going to have to throw it in our face. But by then, it's going to be a month or two away from some big event. And we've been talking about it forever. And when the mainstream public wakes up, bang, just like that, everything in this industry will be gone. Everything. Because the mainstream hasn't even dipped a toe in it yet. And the mainstream has a lot of money. And it won't take but just a little bit of awareness, whether it be with the banks or with the BRICS or with the election. And I just think that the fact that it's so quiet actually makes me almost physically uneasy that something's not right. And I'm feeling something's not right because I know things are not right. But why don't other people see that done again? And that will go down, honestly, as one of the biggest mysteries of my life.
Well, it's not so much, the mystery to me is one layer behind that. The answer to that is quite straightforward, is that people believe what they're told over and over and over again. We know that about people psychologically. That's just it's a weakness of human design and the way we think. We think like a group. We tend to think like a group. We tend to think what we're told. And we're being told over and over and over again in an orchestrated fashion, have been for decades, but especially more recently, that you just trust the authorities, and and this is how things are going, and things are better than they look. Once my wife and I were being shown a property here in Central Florida, and we saw across the lake a highway was being expanded from a 2-lane to 4-lane, and you could hear the equipment. It's really noisy, and you could hear the trucks going by and everything. And the realtor standing next to us on the beach turned to us and said, the traffic over there, it's across the lake, it isn't as noisy as it sounds. Because the water just makes it come across like that. But it's not as noisy as it sounds. So that's what we're all being told. People have this gut feeling that things aren't right. They know their paycheck or their Social Security check or whatever isn't going as far as it used to be. They know that culturally things are spinning out. They know that there's breakdown on the border, invasion not being called an invasion. And it's like growing up in a dysfunctional family where you can't say what you know is true because it just gets denied. And
everyone knows it's true. And I'll use Bill Holter's statement from what that real estate agent said. That's just too stupid to be stupid. I mean, it's not as noisy as it sounds. Well, that's a really good analogy. And I think look, at some point there's got to be some people with journalistic integrity who stand up and say what everyone else already knows. And that's what we've been doing. And I'll say, you know what? It's nice to be proven right after, I don't know how much joy I take in it, but it's nice to know that I haven't been crazy, the things that I've been saying for a long time. And when you hear someone like Putin say, does anyone know what they're doing by doing this? Wake up, people. We have really squandered these privileges of being the world reserve status and being the envy of the beacon of light and freedom and justice and liberty and all of the things that made this country great. Now people look at it and say, not so much. So let's hope that we can pull ourselves up from where we are. Maybe a new administration and a fresh change. Something, anything. It starts with all of us, though, realizing that you got to start with your own house. And I think that I really do believe that this year there will be some event leading up between now and November that will crystallize what we've been talking about. I hope I'm wrong. I think there'll be some event that will shock the public. I really, truly, truly do. And the fact that no one is realizing that only crystallizes my belief even more. So we'll, like I said at the beginning of the year, I can't wait to run shotgun with you on this. There's no one better at seeing the big picture than you, and I look forward to continuing to do this with you through the rest of the year. And I thank you for letting me just go off on tangents. It feels really good to get it off my chest because I don't talk this way to my friends. I don't talk this way really to anyone except my computer screen and you on the other end. So I thank you for it. Comes from the heart, I'll tell you that much.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got almost 100,000 subscribers just on YouTube and about 10,000 more across Brighteon, Rumble, SoundCloud, and so on that are looking forward to your visits each week. So it's not just me on the other side of the screen. It's our whole base of our subscribers, our viewers, everyone who's here with us on Liberty and Finance. And you've stood by us through these times, reminding people that you're trying to find affordable ways for people to prepare if they do want to position themselves ahead of calamities that are coming, or at least to make sure that if opportunities arise that they're well positioned as well. You've told us the story about how you were able to afford a better home than you would have been by paying attention, taking advantage, and positioning yourselves correctly. So can you remind us what this week's specials are so people hear it directly from you?
Yeah, we kind of, I guess you could say we kind of took the easy way out and kept the specials from last week. I've been out of town, so you have to forgive me. I think that's what we've done, and that is the silver Valcambi or Asahi. Valcambi and Asahi, two of the most reputable name brand bars in the industry, 100-ounce bars at $1.39 over spot. Also, the silver backdate Maple Leafs at $3.75 over the price of silver spot. And then the $10 and the $20 Liberty extra fine grade, my favorite gold coins. And at the price they're hard to ignore. They are and will always be my favorite gold coins. And I think if you can buy them at these price levels, they are something you should strongly consider. And I haven't said that in years because the premiums got so high ever since 2008. So in any case, like I've said every week in 2024 and for the last few weeks of 2023, everything is on sale right now. Everything is on special. And if you're looking to buy, now is the time to do it, not only because there's great availability and low premiums, but I don't know, like in the spidey sense, I feel something is not right, and I can't quite articulate it. Now, I don't normally get that feeling, but I feel it, and I just I think that it's time for people to take some of your profit off the table, especially if you've done really well in the S&P or the Dow and some of these high performing, highfalutin stocks. Take some of your chips off the table, put it in your pocket so that you leave the casino with some money in your pocket. And that's the way to win, is if you're gonna play in this very high leveraged casino right now, then take some chips off, put it in your pocket, and walk away a winner no matter what. And that would be the very least I would do. But in any case, lots of good stuff available, no delivery delays, and everything's on sale. So I will stop rambling. I'm in a rambling mood today, but I will look forward to seeing you and everyone else in a couple of days on our normal Tuesday afternoon time slot.
I wanted to tag, before we leave, off of your comment about putting money in your own pocket. And that is something that Wayne Jett said the greatest trick that the bankers ever played on the working man, because by natural law, the working man should be able to take the fruits of his labor and put it in his own pocket and take it with him into the future for any potential opportunity or need that he may have, or for any purpose that he might see fit in the future. But the greatest trick that the bankers ever played on humans, on the worker, was to say, no, you can't put the money in your own pocket. You have to put it on a piece of paper and put it in the banker's pocket, and then they'll do with it what they will. So as you're considering potentially lightening your load up on this bubble of everything, folks, the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market, be very cautious about leaving those funds in the bank right now, because that's putting it on a piece of paper in the banker's pocket. And according to the Dodd-Frank Act, which Andy read to us from verbatim about 3 weeks ago, those funds are no longer yours if you do that. Anything you put in the bank is no longer yours. It belongs to the bank. Yeah, what did Henry Ford say? Something to the extent of, if the people truly understood the banking and the monetary system, there would be a riot before morning. And that's just it. People just don't get it. But they will, and it will just take one big blow up, one big event, and people will. And we'll be here sounding the alarm. And again, hopefully enough people listen to us to make a difference. And I thank you again for the platform and the time and the friendship, and I look forward to picking up with you where we left off in just a few days. And as always, folks, if you don't want to miss a single episode with Andy or any of our other guests, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com, put in your email address only, click submit, make sure you confirm on the confirming email. You'll get one email every day in your inbox. We don't share your email address with anybody. You won't miss a single episode with Andy or any of our other guests. You'll always see the weekly special as well. And Andy, as always, on behalf of all of our viewers, thanks for joining us on Liberty and Finance.
Good to see you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for February 5th through February 12th, 2024, while supplies last. This week we have silver Valcambi or Asahi 100-ounce bars at just $1.39 over spot per ounce. We also feature pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $89 over melt and $139 over melt, respectively. Next, backdated 1-ounce silver maples are at $3.75 over spot with a minimum order of 50. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.